Okay. Actually, let me just check that. Turn the phone on.
I'll make sure we're going.
Race open.
Welcome everybody to our audit and governance committee meeting today. Thank you all for coming along. A couple of housekeeping rules. Just to confirm that there are no planned fire alarms today. So if the fire alarm does sound, all attendees are to exit the building as swiftly as possible. And Tees Valley Combined Authority staff members will direct you to the nearest safest exit and muster point. Just a reminder that obviously, as you'll see, the filming equipment is there, so please can I ask people to use microphones, or if they haven't got a microphone and somebody else is speaking, please pass that microphone along to other people so that audio is picked up as well, please. Members of the public are still able to record if they wish to do so as well, so thank you very much everybody for those who are in attendance. So just to look at the agenda items today, so we'll go on to agenda item number 1, which is apologies for absence. Do we have any apologies for absence today? And Andrew Evans. And Lee Webb, thank you. Anybody else? No? No? Thank you very much for those. Item number 2, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest from anybody? If anybody does have any as we go through the meeting, as always, please do just speak up and we can deal with them as we go through the meeting as well. Thank you. Agenda item number 3 are the minutes of the previous meeting and the action tracker as well. So can we approve the last minutes of the meeting, which were held on the 26th of February 2025 as a true record? Thank you. And Gary, are you going to note the items on the action tracker with the committee?
Yes, we've got training session. Sorry, Chair, I'll make sure this is working. Excuse me. The first action we've got is in relation to explanation of restricted cash. We're going to look at that as part of the training session we've got on later for members, which we've got after the formal meeting closes. We'll go through all the explanation for that. That's part of, we agreed to familiarise members with the financial statements, so we'll be going to, that's one of the items on the financial statements. The second area is in relation to that point I've just mentioned about hosting a session on the accounts. So again, that's going to be a training session for members following the committee meeting today. The audit strategy memorandum isn't due yet. That was something we envisaged around May time, but we'll get an update from Claire and the team as to when we think that will come forward based on the audit work that's happening at the moment, pre-planning work. For the audits, that's on the agenda as well. In terms of internal audit actions, we've got a detailed report for the actions update with the red, amber, green RAG assessments that was requested last time, included within the paper that Angela will pick up, Chair, as part of the agenda as well. We also have ID disaster recovery. We've got to arrange some dates for that. That is around awareness training for staff. We haven't got dates for that yet, Chair, so we're still working on that to coordinate on that one. Just over the page, Emma has been liaising with members of the committee. In particular, we've got Councillor Morley. I understand you've been having some conversations on that as well, so I'll leave it to the appropriate point in the meeting if you want to cover that, or if you want to give an update now.
Yeah, it's not on this agenda, but I think we can probably get it to next meeting.
Okay. Risk management. We'll take feedback as part of this management, this register update that we've got on the agenda again today, Chair, as to how we make that visually better for members as well. But we have made some amendments to the internal audit risk assessment section of that paper. And then we've got EY audit report, and I think I just need to double check, Elaine, have we got a link for cabinet presentations on? We sent that link out with this was the independent review presentations on. Okay, if we could send that out, it's in the public domain, but if we just send the link out for ease reference, that was where we briefed all committees on financial positions, part of the independent review. So I think, yeah, that covers everything on the action tracker, and obviously we can dovetail back at the end if we feel see if we've covered the ones that are on the agenda as well.
Thanks for that update, Gary. Does anybody have any questions on those items so far? And as Gary said, some are covered off within the agenda items that we have anyway, but happy if anybody's got any questions at this stage, Tom? No? Thanks for that update, Gary, and yeah, we'll just cover them off as we come up. We can backtrack if there's anything at the end as well. Agenda item number 4, which is the report to the Audit and Governance Committee, which is the external audit update for 23-24 and 24-25. So I think this is over to yourself, Claire, to provide an update. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So since the last committee, we have been looking to try and get started on our audit planning for 24-25. Been trying to get meetings in diary with management to go through and start developing our risk assessment, and we spoke on Monday afternoon and agreed sort of a timeline about getting us some information that we need to do our planning, particularly in relation to data, to do our data analysis, because without that we're unable to kind of scope and figure out what our risk assessment is and the level of resource required to complete the audit. So now the team are looking at getting that to us as quickly as we can, and we have provisionally lined up resource in May to complete that audit planning. Should be able to get all that information that we need. Once we've got to that point, we'll draft our audit strategy memorandum, which, as is in the minutes, will come to you the July audit committee audit governance meeting, and then we will develop a project plan in conjunction with management. Because the timing of the plan work is going to be quite tight this year, but we'll agree a plan with management in terms of how we get through the audit process with a view to issuing our signed audit opinion on 24-25 financial statements by the end of this calendar year. And the National Audit Office Code of Audit Practice for 2024 just require that actually our value for money narrative is issued by the 30th of November this year, so the intention would be really to issue the accounts opinion and the value for money both by the end of November this year.
Thank you for that, Claire. Does anybody have any questions to ask Claire? Yeah, Councillor Morley, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just to clarify, you alluded to the fact you've been struggling to keep the accounts to sort of get on top of everything. Can you confirm or can reconfirm for the record that, Gary, you have capacity now to assist here?
Yes, it's simple answer is yes, but we've had to recruit. I think we've talked about that at the previous committee, so we've got resourcing specific resource actually on financial statements resource as well as the existing resource we already had, so we have bolstered that within the team and we're resourced up for the year ahead.
Lovely, thank you.
Thank you for that. Airplanes, there we go. Anybody else got any questions? And it's good to hear, Gary, that you've got those people on board now, because, you know, it has been an area, isn't it, before, so it's nice to hear that we're moving forward, and hopefully, as Claire said, we'll get back on track for, you know, for the, you know, future years now, isn't it, in terms of, the position we've all found ourselves in, not just this local authority, in terms of the combined authority, isn't it, but yeah, hopefully going forward into future years, we'll all be working on the year that we're actually dealing with at that point, so thank you very much for that. Gary, do you want to cover off the best value details at this point?
Yeah, I just thought it would be appropriate because the best value notice has been issued, and obviously it was issued at a time where we couldn't formally report it in the committee papers due to the time of the production of the papers, but we will obviously have a substantive item on the agenda in the future, but I felt it appropriate to give a verbal update to the committee. So we've received this best value notice is the government's official response to the independent review. You might recall, just for members' benefit, that we submitted an action plan and details to the Secretary of State in line with the timescales. They needed to take that under consideration. There's been a lot of other changes as well, government, etc. But they said they would come back to us with a formal response. This is their formal response to the independent review. The best value notice in terms of powers that are used, this is non-statutory, but it's got a 12-month time frame on it. The main focus is around the organisations in TVCA leading its own improvement plan, and ensuring it does so. Government have noted that obviously we've already taken steps through the work with the Tees Valley Independent Review itself, the action plan, the actions that we've given evidence back to government on, so they've already helpfully noted that this isn't a standing start, this is something that you need to build on what you've done and then keep that continuous improvement journey going forward. I think the other aspects are we're required to develop an improvement plan. That improvement plan needs to seek member agreement as well, and that should be submitted to the Secretary of State within 3 months of the letter, the date of the letter. So that takes you to the beginning of July formally in terms of the date of the letter. We're looking at going to our end of June cabinet, so we make sure we comply with that. And there's work with the LGA within the letter as well, in terms of the LGA led improvement board, independent improvement board that will be formed, that will provide support and challenge to that process, and government will look to the board, and in addition to that board, our external auditors for updates and assurance that any necessary changes that have been requested are being made. That covered 4 key areas they identified within that letter around governance, the actual scrutiny, elements of that with partnerships, and also in continuous improvement itself that they wanted to make sure was there. So all those aspects will form part of the improvement plan. So we're engaging with LGA, we're engaging with government and our auditors, obviously our audits up to speed, and they'll see themselves within the public domain. We've created a dedicated team to lead on the improvement plan. We're prioritising mapping out, this first phase is mapping out the process from now to that end of June cabinet, ensuring we've engaged and took the input and the soundings of all the relevant stakeholders to get to the end of June cabinet for consideration and sign off to then submit that improvement plan to the Secretary of State. So that's just to give you a headline of the time frame, so there'll be lots of detail underneath that we need to do. The priority for us obviously is to do that, but it goes without saying, from our perspective, it's been absolutely committed to that continuous improvement piece and providing that assurance of those improvements. So we'll work with the improvement board accordingly. We'll obviously work with this committee as well in terms of updates throughout that life cycle as well. So that'll be both in terms of between now and June, in going to cabinet, we'll have engagement with this committee, but also once the plan is actually live and agreed and running, updates coming to the committee as well. So I just thought it was a useful talk the committee through those stages really, and like I said before, we'll bring an actual paper to committee on that at the next available opportunity as well, Chair.
Thank you, Gary, for that update. Any questions for Gary on the update there? Yeah, Councillor Morley.
Thank you. I'm not quite. Is this on?
Yes, it is, yes.
Lovely. I wasn't quite sure. Just one question. Well, two questions. Just to clarify the improvement plan coming to audit and governance, Gary. Is that the plan, or hints to the plan, or actions to the plan? How does that look?
It's a good question. So obviously we're working through the timeline as we speak. We've only just received the notification, but the idea is that we will have engagement sessions with the Audit and Governance Committee. So that may well be that we do it as, it will be the format, whether it's a workshop or how we actually want to do that. But we want to have an engagement sessions with the committee that then inform the actual plan itself. Well, clearly, once we've got the plan live, we want to do formal updates to committee on progress against the plan, like we will to our other committees as well. We feel that we need to make sure we've covered all of the statutory sort of forums that we've got to give updates on it once we're live with it as well.
Brilliant, thank you. I've just got one other question. Sorry, this microphone is. Just in terms of the mayoral development corporations, one of the recommendations in the guidance is that the mayor doesn't sit on as the chair of the development corporations. Will that be discussed in this improvement plan, or is that being discussed in this committee, or given we're governance as well as audit?
I suppose there's a couple of points to that. One is, like you say, from a governance perspective, committee seeking assurances on different aspects. Like, this is for members' benefit. This is the latest MDC guidance that's been issued. So forgive me if you've already seen it, but there's new guidance come out from government on mayoral development corporations and the governance arrangements. So there's an element of the committee's oversight on things getting assurance, but there's also the actual decision making of what is happening in response to that guidance, which obviously the mayor needs to just come out. The mayor needs to look at that, and then I won't speak for the mayor, but the mayor needs to actually then respond to that in terms of what their thoughts are on that as well.
And will it come here then? Will we know first in audit and governance, given we cover governance then?
You mean in terms of before any proposals are put forward?
Yes, that's exactly right. Just so I can understand the process a bit clearer.
I'll check that, because I don't know off the top of my head, but I would like to say something wrong in terms of process, but I can check that for you and feedback.
That'd be brilliant. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Anybody else got any other questions at all? Gary, just on in terms of obviously the value for money notice sort of and the issue it's been issued to the team. Obviously we've heard there about trying to get back on track with other things. Is it going to make a material impact on what we're already doing business as usual wise in terms of that, and are we geared up for that so that it doesn't have a massive impact elsewhere?
I think it'd be wrong to say there's never any impact from something like that. There'll be an impact. It's about how you manage it, I think, with it. So that's why we've talked about the resourcing requirements of the team itself that's going to coordinate and manage that interface with the improvement board and stakeholders. And inevitably, as part of that work, they'll need to feed off the teams, because there might be a financial aspect, there might be a non-financial. They'll need to go and speak to the team members. I think from our perspective, we feel like the way we're resourcing it up is to make that efficient. Have a dedicated team on the project. So that's definitely on our radar, to make sure we've got that in place, and we feel we've got the teams in place to do that. Yeah.
Well, it's good to hear that you've allocated a dedicated team. I think that is probably going to be beneficial for everybody, isn't it, going through to keep that on track and everything else. So it is good to hear from a committee perspective that you have allocated that team to do that engagement piece and to work through the details of that. So thank you very much for that. Anybody else got any other questions or comments at all? No? Thanks for that, Gary, thank you. And thanks, Claire, for the update. Thank you. So, agenda item number 5, which is the internal audit progress update. So, Vicky, are you doing that update? Thank you.
Yes.
Yes, thanks very much. Thank you. Over to you.
It's a bit of a combination between the two of us.
All right, okay, that's fine, no problem. Happy for whoever to go first to lead, that's fine, thank you.
So I think there's quite a lot of progress being made over the last few months with regards to our internal audit reports, and
Thank you.
so I think there's been a lot of progress over the last few months with regards to the internal audit reports that have been completed for 24-25. I'll leave those for Andrew to go through in detail. But we are working to close down a number of the recommendations from previous years, and you will see in the report that a lot of those have closed down. You should see a lot of progress from the last one, especially on those older actions. We put a lot of time into focusing on those. And we have started to commence work and discussions on the plan for next year as well. But I'll let Andrew go through the actual reports and then you can pick up.
That's great, thank you. Andrew, do you want to go through your details now? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So, first report is our summary internal controls assurance report. So that table at paragraph 2 report shows the reviews that have been completed and finalised since the previous meeting of the committee. Full reports follow on today's agenda, but I have put the key findings from each executive summary in Appendix A of this report, but I propose to take each report individually after this one. At the time the report was issued, there were no proposed changes to the plan, but in light of the value notice that was recently issued, there is a small change in government review scores to be more specific in their coverage and to reduce the risk of duplication. Pleased to say that in the work we've completed, we've made no priority 1 urgent recommendations, and there's no issues identified that would require us to issue a qualified head of internal audit opinion at this stage. Appendix B shows progress against the plan. Just to remind members, commencement of the work was delayed, which we discussed at previous meetings, and we were only able to start our work in January this year. But we've moved on with it. We've got quite a lot of work done already. We issued those reports. We have tweaked a few of the start dates from the ones we previously gave you, whilst the scoping of the projects was done with the organisation. Pleased to say that we're still on track to deliver the full year's work by the end of April and provide the relevant annual reports and head of internal audit opinion statements for the agreed meeting dates in May for STVCA and June for this committee. Just on those ones that are in progress at the moment, both of the cyber security reviews are in the final stages before the draft can be written. Some additional information is being provided by the auditor following a fine meeting with our auditor. The HDC project work, I say it's currently in the QA process, but it's actually come from there this morning and is down in our head office to be issued, so that should be out in the next couple of days. Just to say, it has been challenging to deliver the volume of work in such a short space of time. But I'd like to highlight the continued engagement through Victoria in getting dates and auditees in line and ready, as well as the engagement from the auditees during the audit process, and that's really helped us get through. And I think there's a much better relationship between us and the organisation now. We're getting stuff when we want it and in time. And then finally, Appendix C just summarises some potential relevant briefings that have been issued since the last meeting of this committee. So before we go through the reports, I'll pause if there's any questions.
Thank you, Andrew. Any questions initially for Andrew at all? Councillor Morley?
Thank you. Sorry, I feel like I asked loads. I just, could you explain a bit more, Andrew, about the business continuity planning on page 17? Because that was, there. Steering group meetings are in progress to identify and test scenarios. The business continuity plan draft has been updated in line with the recommendations. Issue is pending the plan testing of the identified scenarios.
I think that's a question for management because that's their part of the report.
Thank you. Angela, do you want to come in?
Sorry, Angela.
No, it's fine.
Thank you.
I was like,
just for a bit of background on how this came about, we have a business continuity plan. We obviously were at Cavendish previously, we're here now. We have got a business continuity plan, but a lot of work's gone into updating that, refreshing it, given all of the new risks that exist in the external environment. I think Angela can probably give a bit more of an update, but we do have a continuity plan in place at the moment, and we are working on it.
Right, okay. That was, yeah, so it just read that there wasn't one.
Oh, no.
Wow.
We definitely do have one.
We definitely do have one.
Just like the new cyber risks and things that are coming all of the time, it's being updated to reflect more of kind of the severity that they cause and what our mitigations would be.
Yeah.
It came from one of our audits, which is why it's in there. I think it's not quite completed because you need to then test the plan
Yes.
with desktop exercises first to make sure you've got it right.
Yeah, it's something I obviously inherited in October, so we've been working through it. It's one of the things where COVID actually did us a little bit of a favour, because that was the real life test that we've been able to look. So we're just in the process. We do have a steering group, and we're just identifying the priority areas for stress test to to make sure that it's a robust plan and obviously fit for use to allow that revision.
And will we receive feedback on how that stress test went within this committee?
Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you.
Thank
That's brilliant.
Thank you. Andrew, yes?
Just add to that, Chair, yeah, we also follow up the recommendation and see that there is evidence to support that test being done as well.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you. Just from my perspective, it is good to see that some of these have progressed on from where we've been at previously. So it's good to see that some of them are now signed off and agreed. So there has really been some great progress there from our perspective in where we were before, particularly on some of the, like you said, Victoria, some of the older ones that were on there. So it is good to see some of them actions that have now been completed, or if they're not complete, they're in progress and there's a plan for sort of when we're going to do that. And you know, there are dates on there as well, which I think that was something before, wasn't it, and things. So it's good to see that. Andrew, do you want to continue? Unless anyone's got any questions on the other elements? Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Chair. So yes, the first report is equality, diversity and inclusion. So I'll just pick out some of the key points. Appropriate direction is provided through a suite of policies and strategies already available to staff, supported by posters and officers to support issues or questions that they may have. Testing and dealing related job advertisements identified no issues, and established templates in place and the use of neutral language. We have made a recommendation in relation to training, which was seen to be around about 70% completed when at the time of the audit, and there was limited evidence to support in which we needed to chase some completion. So as you can see from the management's responses, they action something on that and get the figures right up again. So that's okay, that's recommendation 3. We also identified that quality impact assessments weren't being taken in the HR recruitment policy, so there's a risk there that policies could intentionally disadvantage certain groups and substitutes to promote inclusivity and fairness in the workforce. That's recommendation 4. The main recommendations to routine priority 3, housekeeping level, coercion control, and potentially involving the staff in choosing the subjects for the monthly lunch and learn sessions. So those recommendations are rating of reasonable assurance has been assigned to this audit. Also questions.
Thank you for that update, Andrew. Thank you. Any questions on the equality report?
Thank you, Chair. It's just an observation actually. I thought these were really excellent recommendations. I also note that consideration to be given to rolling out unconscious bias training as well. And I just wondered, sort of a general question to the officers, how do we monitor that at the moment? Is it online training? Do we have data on the training? Or?
So the training that's referred to is a product called IASCO. We've got online training. It's not just for this particular, it's for a lot of our online trainings through that product. It's a recommended product that a lot of authorities use as well. And we can monitor, that's where we can monitor the take-up and the compliance, and then we can follow up with management teams to just follow up to make sure people complete the training, timings of completion of training. But it also looks at sort of annual review processes as well, and then flags if there's actually it's due a refresher or something like that as well.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you.
Thank you. And just again, obviously, you know, in the findings there, particularly for number 3, you know, the rates were fairly low, you know, to see that, and obviously you've referenced the fact that those completion rates have now increased, so it's good that there's going to be a process to monitor those going forward, and that we will naturally then pick them up with reminders in future, so hopefully that won't be as low in future years when that's looked at. Thank you. Anybody else got any other questions or comments on that particular report? No, thank you. Andrew, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So next piece was for MDC. This was procurement of consultants. Key bits from this. The policy aligns with the procurement strategy, and it has been updated to reflect the Procurement Act 2023, which came into force finally in February this year. There's a dedicated procurement team in place to mitigate against the risk of inexperienced or unqualified persons making procurement decisions. The testing that we undertook found that the processes were found to follow the prescribed methods and no issues
only thing I've got, obviously the Procurement Act changes are quite detailed in terms of the new changes. And we're confident we've reviewed all of those and we've got those in place. Obviously it is now in place, in force. So, and things like social value and things like that are obviously within the new guidelines. How are we capturing things like that, or how are we monitoring that as well?
I can't say for definite, but I will check up when I've come back to you on that.
Yeah, thanks. Do you want to come in, Victoria? Yes, thank you.
So our procurement team have been on a number of external led training courses. They've issued guidance regularly to members of the sort of senior management team within, and we've shared that down through our teams. So there has been extensive training on it, and they've got a number of new processes and systems in place to ensure we're meeting those deadlines. And they've also been working closely with my team, the finance team, to ensure they can get the reporting that they're required to comply with that. So I do believe they're well expressed to ensure that they'll be compliant.
I'm just wondering if it's something, would you naturally pick that up, Andrew, as part of the work that you're doing now going forward? Obviously it is a new act that's just come in, and we need to sort of have the confidence that that act is then being introduced across all of our processes. Will that be picked up as part of your works?
It will going forward.
It will, yeah.
A number of our auditors have already been on the training courses,
Right.
and they are training the rest of the auditors on
Yeah.
it, and our programmes have been updated accordingly. But I will check the working papers on this one just to make sure that we did cover that, which I'm sure we will.
Thanks, Victoria. Yeah, Victoria, yes, thank you.
We have a session, which we're arranging a session with yourself to discuss our audit plan for next year, and it is worth us considering a review on that to going forward, actually putting it as a specific
Yeah, yeah,
audit review.
yeah, that would make sense.
It's probably worth noting that the Development Corporation's Audit and Governance Committee's requested a training session on our preparedness for the Procurement Act. So they've had, I think it's Middlesbrough that's had it delivered. So if this committee would like that session delivered by our head of procurement, then I'm sure she'd happily, we can factor that into this training we've got for this committee and add that in to come and do that for this committee.
I think that would be really useful for members.
There's a big
Yeah.
piece on social value as well.
There is,
Probably
yeah.
give you a bit of an update of where we are with social value.
Yeah, no, that would be, I think that would be really beneficial for everybody to get that, if that could be arranged. Yeah, thank you. Gary?
Sorry, Chair. Just the other part that the procurement team have done quite a bit of work on, as well as they've done external events to suppliers and SMEs. So they've not just been focused internally on the changes of the Act and social value, they've been running events, facilitating events externally as well with the supply chains as well.
Yeah, no, that's really good to hear that there is some ongoing engagement, particularly with the smaller businesses as well, isn't it, which is what the Act hopes to capture going forward, so that's really good. Yeah, if we can arrange that, that would be really good, thank you. Anybody else got any other questions on that one? No? No? Thank you. We'll just scroll down, is there another one?
Yes, there's
There
one.
is, isn't there? Yeah. Right, yeah, the payroll one,
I'll
thank
take
you.
the next two together
Okay,
because they're both payroll.
That's fine, thank you, Andrew.
So obviously each review covered payroll for its employees,
Yeah.
but I did have them undertaken by different auditors, and hence you've got different wording in the reports. Fortunately with the same findings, and they both came up with the same thing. But it's a predominantly testing-based audit, so samples covering levers, starters, expenses, payroll authorisation, payroll changes, reconciliations, and release and authorisation of payroll. In all the samples selected for both entities, there were no issues identified. However, we did identify that the information provided to the payroll processing organisations on the job is being sent through email. And whilst we had confirmation via IT and the evidence to support emails encrypted, the file isn't, and therefore it could still be sent to the wrong person, which would be a data breach under the Data Protection Act. So we've suggested that some strengthening is needed there, and pleased to see that management immediately used passwords to protect it, and they're looking to use shared folders, which is a much safer way of doing things when you think of the information that may be being passed in between the people and yourselves. The only other recommendation relates to a travel and expenses policy that hadn't been reviewed and is designated cycle for both organisations. With the recommendations that we've made, both audits were assigned reasonable assurance. Any questions, Chair?
Thank you for that, Andrew. Any questions on those two reports at all from anybody? No? No? Thank you very much, and again, some progress, you know, in terms of even when you have identified areas that management have taken that action immediately to strengthen that process, so again, it's good to see that that action has now been put in place, and going forward, obviously, the implementation will change as it's transitioned across to SharePoint. So thank you.
Victoria was straight on the phone.
Good.
That's the best way forward.
Yeah,
here,
well,
actually.
that's it, isn't it? It just gives us that assurance and that protection around the data. So thank you. Anybody else got any other questions at all before we move on to the next
I
slide?
think it was just to add that we've
Yeah.
got a timetable for the rest of the plans, and we've got all of the scopes agreed, and the kick-off meetings have been taken place, so we intend to, they should be complete ready for the next meeting.
Thank you very much.
I've
Thank you.
got one more to do.
One more, yeah. I keep scrolling.
Yeah.
Keep going. Go on. Thank you, Andrew.
SIP for implementation follow-up review. So this was a review of the management actions that have been taken in response to the SIP for review, that was commissioned by TVCA. So table in paragraph 2 just summarises the position of the 21 recommendations that were made. We have been provided with appropriate evidence to confirm that 15 of them have been fully implemented, and some of those were things like the pre-meets and the camera sessions that we're now having for all the committee meetings, etc. There were 2 recommendations that were outstanding and that they hadn't been implemented by the original suggested date. One of those was recommendation 10, which is actually going to be part of the planning process for 25-26 internal audit plans. So that will be done in this quarter. And the other one was around some briefings for tier staff, and we're going to propose into this quarter as well, and gain a better understanding of the organisation. There were 2 recommendations that had not yet reached their due date at the time of the follow-up, but obviously they'll be picked up next time when we do the follow-ups. One recommendation was considered and not implemented, which was recommendation 20. Something that was recommended by SIPFA, which isn't normal practice, and we do agree with the management comment that should the need arise, then it will be discussed on a case-by-case basis. The new global internal audit standards do require additional reporting on adherence to standards in comparison to the previous standards that were in place, and we will provide that through our half-yearly and yearly reporting, so we will cover it off twice really with that. Other than that, no, there was good progress being made on the ones that were implemented. We left the market report, so we can see exactly what actions being taken by most of the analysis.
Wait for the aeroplane to go past. Does anybody have any questions at all on that? Gary, thank you.
Just one comment really. I think we call this as part of the independent review, so to get SIP for the conduct of review of internal audit, so we discharged that action, which was recommendation 27 for the independent review. This was the follow-up elements to it, the actual actions from that piece of work. So I'm pleased that the amount of progress that's been made, significant amount of that delivered, and the ones that are still due to be delivered, plans in place with us as well. So by the end of the quarter, we're going to a position where we're completely discharged all of those, but not just from a management perspective, our internal audit colleagues are independently assessing that. So that's what we wanted to happen as part of the internal audit plan, that we produce the evidence, produce the information, then obviously Andrew and the team, they check it and check they're happy with it as well.
Thanks for that, Gary. Anybody else got any other questions? Gary, just on obviously the one that was touched on there, number 20, what was the reason behind the management confirmation on that one?
So this is the one Andrew was referring
Yes.
to, where we had a discussion actually together on it, because it was at odds with what we'd normally expect in the marketplace in terms of access to underlying audit files. And I mean, Andrew can talk a bit more about it. We've got many clients like this where this just doesn't happen.
Okay.
It's a standard thing that you would do that. You actually, your auditors conduct their work and then their feedback, rather than management going into underlying audit files and etc. That's a matter for the auditors to look after their files to a professional standard in line with the standards and then report accordingly. But I don't know if you want to comment.
Yeah, from a client, I can't remember in the last 20 years whether they ever provided anything. I do remember in the past, like this before, a time where external audit used to pick some of our files to review, because they used to be able to place reliance on our work, but they can't do that anymore. So yeah, it was just, I thought I'm surprised that there was a recommendation
Andrew, for all of those. Thank you. Very exhaustive reporting there, but thank you for all of the work that you've done in the teams, and you know, like I said, to get it to the point it is really good as well. So thank you. Next agenda item, which is agenda item number 7, which is the regulatory update. So I think that's yourself, Emma. Yeah, thank you. The microphone, thank you.
I've got nothing to add, Chair, but I'm happy to take comments or questions from members.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions on the contents of the report at all?
Yeah, I have some comments and observations. Sorry, can you hear me okay? I'm
Yes.
too busy flapping
It's okay,
around with
thank
this
you.
microphone. Easy one. So, just a couple of questions in respect to if we. First of all, I want to add on thank you for letting us know how many freedom of information requests we've had and the data on there from the period of the 1st of January 2025 to the 27th of March. Yeah. That was gratefully appreciated. Are we taking questions on the policies now as well, or are you giving an introduction to that, Emma?
So the data protection policy is to note. So that's attached to this.
Yes, I've just got
That's
that.
attached to this. That's attached to this report. The access to information policy is the next item.
Yes, so if we, the data protection policy, is that to note, and that is what we'll go through, just so we're clear. We'll be noting it as a yes or
It's to note, but if you've got any comments on it, I'm happy to take comments on it if you do have any.
I do. I have a question first. Does the Tees Valley Combined Authority data protection policy also cover our development corporations?
No, so the intention is that the individual development corporations will have their own data protection policy.
Right, okay. Right, that's lovely. That confirms that one. Right, a couple of questions I had to know is I would, like the managing behavioural policy, like an opportunity to go through this with you, because there are some things on it that I'm struggling with. So on page 11 of the actual policy, which they have 2 numbers on, so apologies to everybody. But on page 11, it talks about special category data, which is actually extremely important. I actually don't think that given that this is an internal policy and for members of the public to understand, I struggled a bit that it didn't fully give the legalities of it. And the other issue I had with this policy as well is that in your report we had a lovely explanation about the Data Protection Act, but that actually doesn't feature in here, because I think there's a lot of confusion sometimes between the GDPR and actually the actual legislation is the Data Protection Act, as we know, 2018, which I think is really important. I didn't think there was enough legal law in here, given it's so important, especially about the special categories, and wondered whether we could just send it back for another review, if you don't mind.
So I'm not bringing it to this committee. It's really important as Data Protection Officer that I get this published, because it is a step forward from what we've got at the moment. So it wouldn't be my intention to bring it back for approval to this committee, but I'm more than happy to liaise with you to sort of enhance the areas you're interested in before we publish it.
Right, okay, that's brilliant. Yeah, I'd be grateful of that.
Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you.
Anybody? I said, yeah. Anybody got any other questions on that particular policy? I'll take them individually if that makes it easier. Or
So it's regulations on the policy, it's on the report.
yeah, that's fine, Councillor Walker, thank you.
Right, let's go back to the report.
Yeah.
I just say on the policy, I think it's good policy to.
Sorry, could I just ask you to use the microphone for somebody,
Oh,
please?
okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Chair, my apologies for arriving late. I
No,
had
it's
car problems on
Thank
the way.
you.
Yeah, I'm just on in reference to the comments just now. I think it's always good to make clear in a policy what is law and what is policy. So as reference to relevant legislation. So my query when I get back to it is on the freedom of information data. I'm still scrolling.
It's on page 79.
So yeah, so request received 56, and you've got for responses due by the end of April 2025. So are RFIs responded to, are they due within 20 working days?
Yeah, so
So when they're responded by the end of April, are they within the 20 working
yeah,
days?
so the difficulty we've got in reporting in quarters is that the request and the response might come in different quarters.
Okay.
So that's kind of mop up of what
okay,
came
that
in,
makes sense,
but
yeah.
then is responded to in the next. So they will feature in the next update, but they were technically received in this.
Okay.
Do you see what I mean? So
Yeah.
no matter how you slice up a reporting
So they'll actually
period.
be due by no less than 20 or 20 working days.
Yeah, so those ones are
Right,
still
that
within the
makes-
20
that
day,
makes sense.
but they were received in the period that you're receiving a report about, but they haven't yet had a response. Do you
So
see what I mean?
I presume this thing about quarters explains the next question I was going to ask, which is you've got 0 complaints received, but you've got 1 upheld. So presume the 1 upheld related to the previous quarter.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we can. This is a starting point of probably where we need to be in terms of reporting to this committee on this type of data. So we can certainly start to. We started to look at. I was explaining to Councillor Molly earlier on. They're beefing it up and giving a bit more information to the committee so they understand this. So we can certainly look at developing this further.
And where there was
Right,
one
committee
that was
information.
held in the complainant's favour, is there any action being changed things regarding that?
Off the top of my head, I don't know, but I can certainly circulate
The stats, isn't it? And then there's
Yeah, I mean,
was it something?
we can attach the decision notice going forward because
Yeah.
that has the
I think
all
that
the
would be
detail, the
helpful.
ICO decision notice.
But
Yeah.
is it something just minor or is it
Yeah,
a major thing?
absolutely,
Is it something
yeah.
we need to change our way we deal with things?
Yeah.
Whereas that figure, that number itself doesn't tell us
Yeah,
anything.
I mean, yeah, we can certainly attach the decision notice for those going forward.
Yeah,
And something
very
else
good.
I'd also like to include is there are a lot of complaints that are never reported because they are what we call informally resolved. So if they aren't going to make it to a level where the Information Commission are going to uphold a complaint, it's generally informally resolved and that's
Yeah.
never recorded in the ICO stats. So it's something that I'd also like the committee to be aware of. The number of complaints that we receive that don't ever reach a conclusion because we provide data or information to the ICO which resolves it, but they never formally close it.
Right, so when we have other complaints, as opposed to FII ones, there will be those that will, some of those will, presumably majority of them will be resolved informally before they go through further processes, so that's a similar sort of thing.
Yeah, yeah. So, but where we get complaints, no matter how they're resolved, you should know that
You should
complaint
know
has
that
been
you've had-
received.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any other questions on those reports?
Are we looking at the other policy as well, the freedom of
Yes,
information?
the next
That's
one. Yes, the next one,
Well,
yeah.
yeah.
Just from my perspective, obviously, this is something that, in terms of the freedom of information and the statistics, it's good that we've got them because it is something that the committee had asked for before. So it's good to see that we have moved on from where we were at to this point as well. So, like you say, it is a good starting point for us now to see that and have that visual. So thank you for bringing it to this point as it is now. So yeah, do you want to move on to the next report? Anybody got any questions on the next one?
On the freedom of
Freedom of information one, yeah.
Yeah, I actually think I actually think I have quite a lot of issues on the freedom of information one. I realise, and I've spoken to Emma about this, I realise we haven't got freedom of information policy and one needs to be put in place. But there are key issues. So, for example, at the beginning, and this goes back to Nikki's point in the previous meeting, there's no mention at the beginning of the freedom of information about what the Commission's case of what is vexatious or the principles behind it. And secondly, more importantly, there's a section right at the end that talks about legal professional privilege. And to be honest, the paragraph, I actually went to the ICO's notes and guidance on it. And actually, given that it's on freedom of information, that paragraph is really lacking because it talks about all different areas of legal professional privilege in communication, legal advice and litigation, which is really, I think, quite key as to where we are with the best value notice and governance, because it actually states in the policy that legal professional privilege is absolute, but it isn't absolute if you follow the ICO guidance. There are areas where it isn't, and there's areas about third-party communications, which are also not covered by legal privilege either. So for me, I completely understand the requirement for this policy to go live, but I actually think some more scrutiny needs to have over it in association with the ICO guidance, especially in that area, because actually that paragraph is really not fully correct, legally fully correct. So my recommendation for that policy is it needs to go back for scrutiny, I think, and some further information needs to go in.
Thank you. Emma, do you want to come back on that at all?
I'm most happy to
Is that all
engage
right?
with Councillor Martin. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Anybody else got any other comments? Are you happy for that to happen, Councillor Marley? Are you happy for it to work with?
Absolutely.
Yeah, with Emma on that. And obviously, like any reports, if Emma can come back to the meeting, then obviously we'll all have an oversight of them once any further details are amended or any changes are required to the details. So, thank you. One more. I've lost where I am on the. I think that's the last of yours, Emma. I think it was.
Yeah.
Just
No.
scrolling. I've lost the page.
Just go back, if we could just go back to legal professional
Yeah.
privilege, it may be just that it's a bit confused that under the exemption it does say that we are required to apply the public interest test when considering the exemption in the relevant time.
It does, but that is, it's been written really quite, it's been written like it's easy, but it isn't. And given this is going to be an internal policy as external, I brought up the ICO guidance on that section, and it's, to be fair, it's really quite interesting, but there are areas where it is absolute, and then there are areas where it isn't. So I think that needs to be clear for internal employees using it as well. Absolutely.
Thank you for that. Back to just get the agenda. So I think we're up to agenda item 8. Everybody's got that, which is the access to information policy. Again. Oh no, sorry, that one. Yeah. Reading the wrong one again. Right. Tick it off. That's the easiest thing to do. Yeah. A draft work programme. I think item number 9. Draft work programme 25-26. Thank you. So, has anybody got any comments? It is obviously just to consider the work programme and approve the committee's programme for the 25-26 municipal year. So, does anybody have any comments or anything that they would like to have in addition to what we've got on there, or anybody's got any comments at all? Any questions? No? No? Okay with that? Yeah. Thank you.
Chair, sorry.
Sorry, yeah.
I'm just sorry, I'm just
Yeah.
looking at my notes. I wrote in green pen this time and I'm not quite sure whether that was a good or a bad thing. But I was wondering, on the terms of reference for the group, which is on the work programme, I was wondering if we could add on the agenda any other business, as there is in most agendas, but I don't think it's not on ours. I was wondering if we could maybe add that on as such. So it says, on the terms of reference, and not quite sure where that
Sorry,
sits.
yeah,
or
that's fine.
I believe, and I'll have to double check, but I think this has been mooted before, and the reason it's not is because agendas have to be published 5 days in advance of a committee meeting, so I can speak to your statutory office to understand how they do it, but that's the reason we haven't included it previously, in case matters are raised where there should have been noticed, if you see what I mean. So that's why it hasn't been on previously. It has certainly been asked before, but that's the reason from a governance perspective it hasn't been on, but we can certainly find out how others do it and how they manage what is discussed at those
that would be
in that section.
Thank
Yeah.
you. That would be great.
Chair, on that point then, could it not be, could we not have any other business that has to be notified like 10 working days in advance or whatever, and then that would cover that. Just thinking that, you know, with the emergency.
And that might be how your authorities do it if they have it.
That happen, there might be something coming up with best value notes, etc., that we would need to consider as to how it's been with the reviews. I think it's important that we have that flexibility, not everything's out just set in stone.
Yeah, and that might be how other authorities deal with it and get that advance
Rather
notice.
than
But
just the end of
absolutely.
the meeting say, oh, by the way.
Which is how you see
Yeah.
any other business. It's usually something brought up at the end of the meeting, but as I say, that isn't. Yeah. Certainly looking at no problem at all.
Thank you. I think the only thing that I would say is maybe we need something on there around the Procurement Act info that sort of obviously is going to be progressive throughout this year. Obviously it's very new, and maybe we need to just have an oversight of that on there, just so we do ensure that we follow that framework, and particularly with it being new until it's sort of bedded in a little bit. Particularly I'm thinking this year it might be useful just to have that on there as well, if people think that would be relevant as well.
Happy to do that. We'll feed that back to the team.
No, that's great, thank you. Anybody else got any other things at all before that? No? Thank you very much. So the next items of the agenda are exempt from publication under the terms of paragraph 3, relating to the financial or business affairs of any particular person, including the authority holding that information of Schedule 12A to the Local Government Act. So I would at this point ask anybody, sort of members of the public or anybody who's not part of the committee, to please vacate. Thank you very much.
So on point of procedure, this came up with it to another committee. Are we supposed to vote on that?
Yeah, it's the committee's decision.
So we should actually agree that rather than.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, are we happy to approve that, everybody? Anybody?
Sorry, I
No,
don't.
that's okay.
I've never come across this. Well, I have, but usually they're on pink papers.
Yeah.
So I didn't know we could. What does that mean then, if you don't mind me asking, if we could vote?
And I appreciate in councils you have pink paper, so it's really obvious what's confidential. This has been raised recently, actually. So where we have confidential items, they're noted at the top of the paper that you've got, so you can see the exemption at the top of the paper you've got in front of you. Sometimes it will say it's the whole report, sometimes it will say it's an appendix, or part of an appendix, or you might get a report with an appendix where part of the report has been redacted and there's confidential information in the report. It just depends to what extent the relevant item is confidential. It's under Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972, and they are the methods in which we can exclude the press and public from committee and cabinet meetings. In terms of how we do it, that's our advice as to why that category of data falls within, or the category of information falls within that sort of definition. It's officer advice, but it is the committee's decision to exclude the public. So normally what we'd have in other committees is it is agreed and then seconded by another member of the committee, and it's the committee's decision. But it may be that officers, depending on the content of the report, decide not to then discuss that item and take it away and discuss it with the committee around whether or not it is confidential or appropriate to discuss in the public domain.
Thanks for that, Emma.
Yes,
Yes, Councillor
my
Walker.
point was, it shouldn't just be said that it's the press and public excluded. We should actually, as a committee, vote to agree that, as opposed to it just being assumed.
So it's officer recommendation, but it's committee
that
decision.
came up as another meeting.
Thank you for that clarity, Emma. So just for clarity, so I'll move that we do recommend that the further items are exempt from publication and under the Local Government Act 1972 Schedule 12A, and due to the information relating to financial or business affairs in particular. So I would move that we do ask at this point for the press and public to vacate the meeting. Do I have a seconder on that at all? Thank you. Councillor Morgan has seconded that. Thank you very much. So if I could ask that the press and public do leave the meeting. Thank you very much, and thank you for your
Can I
attendance.
breach the thing and get my...
You can,
Is that
yes.
alright? I'm going to get rugby tackled to the floor. You have to press the button behind you.
Thank you very much.
Cheers, mate.
Hope you had a good time.
So, yeah, we had a good time.
Hope you had a good day. Yeah.